and this is why I don't pretend to know what the answer is, but I know that putting a rigid ban on anything and censorship, centralized control over anything is never a good thing. The people who have censored in the past have ever been the good guys.
Yeah.
It's not often that you censor people's speech because they're saying something harmful. Not often. Look at the Bible, for example. I find it quite a contradiction that the people who chose the books that were in the Bible were the church, and conveniently left out a heap of things that were saying that you don't have to use the church to find God. Like, I think that's a bit of a conflict of interest. And so I don't think ever when someone is the person benefiting from silencing the opposition view is the one doing the censoring, I don't think that's ever a good thing. It doesn't create dialogue. It doesn't create a voice from both sides to be able to understand each other's reasoning and thoughts. The most dangerous thing to the people in power or the people in charge is conversations, because then we start to realise we have more in common than we don't.
Cameron Branch, welcome to the show.
Thanks, old son.
So I feel like you probably can relate to this. I feel like the goal of podcasting is to bring the natural conversation before the show into the show, right? Like, I remember when I started, like, you just become this new person, and it's sort of, you sometimes sort of do, but
yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's hard because every time we get a guest, and especially ones you haven't met before, you're just chatting and getting along, and I often go down, there's a local coffee shop around the corner from our studio, we'll be having chats, and I'll feel like an asshole. Like, I'll be like, hey, we'll stop chatting because this is good. But also sometimes, and I've found recently, talking for half an hour, 45 minutes, even like what we've just done now, gets a bit more flow going, and then you might go, oh, that was good stuff. Being like, well, then it makes the flow on into the next part of the organic conversation probably a little easier, and you're not trying to get to know each other and feel each other out as much. So I don't know, there's pros and cons, because if you wreck a good story, you can't replicate that authentic telling of it and the real reactions of it. So even that, I think you just got to buy into the authentic thing and go, hey, you just told us this story.
Say it again.
Can you just tell us for the listeners? And you just say it like that. Otherwise, it's not authentic if you're trying to replicate something that you've already done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So take me back to the start of Hard Yarns. What was the motivation at that time?
Yeah, so it started out as a podcast called The Real Fake News Podcast, and I had started to move towards creating my own business called B32 Media. I wanted to move out of sheet metal fabrication, and I fell in love with this Gary V mentality. You're across Gary V, so he was pretty influential in my pathway out. I even called my company B32 Media, like Vayner Media. There was similarities, and I think I saw that as a way out, because I liked filmmaking and all things creative in that aspect. And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe I can do something more than sheet metal. And so I remember at lunchtime on Smoko, just telling a heap of the lads at work, I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to start a media company and I'm going to start working in that. And then they laughed. And I was like, oh, fuck you. What are you laughing at? Now I want to do it. So sometimes you say stuff in jest or in passing, but this one was genuinely like, oh, no, actually that's lit a fire in me. I'm going to prove these guys wrong. So started this, and then one of the suggestions by Gary V was to have a podcast based on your company or your content that you wanted to create. And it was just easy to clip. So I was like, okay, makes sense. I'll just do that. And then I was like, oh, I love Joe Rogan. I love, there's a couple of conspiracy podcasts I listened to that were fun. I was like, maybe I could go a bit of both, like motivational business and how that works, how you got to where you are now. And then I could also do what I love watching the most, is debunking the news that is quite clearly fake. So I was like, I'm going to call it the Fake News Podcast. And so I started it with a terrible little setup, no cameras, no nothing like that. Slowly bought all of this stuff as a tax deduction because it was part of the media company, and set it up in my back room in my old house. It was just a spare piss-stained, the cats had pissed in there, just was shitty room. Turned that into it, and got two of me mates a triathlete and a guy who was training to be a triathlete, reformed alcoholic. And I just was like, well, let's do a podcast. Started that on the day that I had handed in my notice to my sheet metal fabrication job, and started from there. And it was not good. It was horrific. It was very stilted, very like, welcome to the first episode of it was like that. It was no good, but it started. It was that first step in what I wanted to do. And then met Delby on second episode. Well, not met Delby. I went to high school with Delby, and I was like, he's an aspiring comedian. Get him on. Let's just have some fun. And that clicked okay. And I was like, okay, that flowed really well. It's a lot better than the first episode. And then I said, well, if you want to come on every now and then with a couple of other comedians. So he put in a couple of episodes where he brought a local comedian. And then after about 8 episodes over the first year, like it really took time to do the first 8 episodes, I just said to Delby, oh, maybe you should just join, like be part of it. You've been in 5 of the first 8, so let's do it together. Because I always think doing something together and connection and with other people is better than doing it by yourself. And he's like, yeah, cool, easy. So I was like, well, I don't want to call it Branchy's Fake News Podcast anymore. If it's both of us, let's have a neutral name. And he came up with The Hard Yarns because it was doing the hard yards, all about people's journeys to where they got. And it's talking. So he loves a pun. So he's like, let's call it The Hard Yarns. And initially I was very taken back by that name. I was like, nah, that's a terrible name. Yeah. And then I sort of just went, you know what? Like, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm sure someone heard Kia the first time and went, that's a terrible brand. And it's still a world-leading brand. It just becomes normal. So it doesn't matter what the word is. Apple. Like, what do you, exactly. So, yeah, just make that your name and it'll become synonymous with you. And it has. And so that slowly progressed into a bit of a mental health podcast as well, unintentionally. Strangely enough, a lot of comedians have mental health problems. So have a lot of people addressing those sorts of situations going on and just talking openly about that, which was kind of nice to have a couple of blokes talking about that. And now it's progressed into what it is. And that was a slow grind from like going into an old loft in Osborne Park, which was where a mate was keeping his furniture because he was going through a divorce and he had nowhere else to keep it. So he's like, yeah, let's use that. So we went up there, did that, and then eventually we were like, we need our own space. Took a leap. We're like, well, we can operate our businesses out of that studio as well, like my B32 Media, that DanielDelby.com. He's a celebrant. He's a MC, comedian, so we can do our meetings there. We're like, it's win-win. Either way, we've got a place of business. And then we started making enough money somehow through consistency, perseverance to be able to at least pay off the rent every month of that. And then over the last couple of years, it's just exploded to a point where we're not only making enough for rent, we're making enough for me to live full-time off it. And Delby, even though he's only in about 40% of the episodes and travelling comedian, he's making money even when he's not there. So, and the rent is paid. So it's progressed and progressed and progressed, and now it's one of the biggest podcasts in Australia. So it's pretty crazy.
What a story.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of that, the most defining moment of that whole journey, well, there's 2. Number 1, starting, because we were like, well, let's just start. It was terrible. It was not good. It's never going to be good when you first start. It's never going to be what it is and what it can be, but it's better to start than not. And the second one was taking a leap into it full time. So at the start of this year, I think it was, I turned away all of my work, all of my extra forms of income, all my MC jobs, all of this hustling work to keep myself afloat. And it made no sense because the podcast was not making enough money to support me. It was only making enough money to support the rent. And I said, well, if it's not going to have all of me, it's not going to succeed. And so in that time, that was very scary because I'm a dad and I have rent and I have, bills to pay and a child to look after. And I was a single dad as well. So it's not like I had a partner to help prop me up. And yeah, I don't know if it's by coincidence or not, but yeah, that worked. And so within a month or two, we started getting more sponsors. We started earning more revenue through Facebook, through Spotify, through YouTube, and it's paid off.
In retrospect, it you can tell the story of it happening when you go all in. But what was that in the moment feeling like when you've got all these commitments and responsibilities, and there is no certainty that it's going to happen?
Fear. Well, look. The first couple of times I half committed to that, and I kept these little, security jobs. Like, okay, I'll help that person with their social media. I'll take on this quiz night or this MC job that I don't want to do just to keep myself afloat. And but I kidded myself that I was still doing, and that was probably the scariest because I was still in this sort of mindset of it's not going to work, I guess. And I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. Whatever changed in my mindset, but there was just this. I don't even know how to phrase this, but there was this knowing that it was just going to work. And I felt quite at ease with it. I think too many times I had feared something not working out and it had always worked out better than I'd even hoped. And I was like, why wouldn't this be the same? So I think when you truly know it can work, or not even when you can truly know it can work, because that's not a leap of faith, when you truly believe that that is your path or that is what is best for you, then I don't think it can fail. Because also, if you take away the parachute, if you don't have that backup plan, you have to make it work. So I had also in my head, maybe this was some sort of backup plan. I'd lost all ego in it. I was willing for it to fail. I was willing to go, if I fail, I'll just go back to sheet metal work, or I'll just work in a bar, or I'll go back to weddings, like whatever it is. Doesn't matter. So I think that's probably the thing, the ego of having people look at you and say he failed. There was no fear of that judgment. It was more a fear of not trying.
It is scary to put yourself out there with your dreams, and even recently, I feel a lot less shame around owning my dreams. I want this to be a full-time thing, but it's scary because then you have to be okay with the reality if it doesn't work out, and you have to bear responsibility for that. But if you have these parachutes and these securities waiting for you, then
I think it's also knowing that it's okay. I've seen you had Boris on lately, and I always talked about that sort of inner knowing, clearing the clutter. I think you'll know if it's the right decision. You'll know if there's, I think you'll know if it's the right decision, because sometimes we get caught up with the clutter of life, the expectations of others, your own limiting self-beliefs, the noise that you hear in politics or social media, or your own problems like bills or stresses or injuries, sickness, whatever. There's a whole lot of mess you're trying to filter out to be able to hear what's going on in here. And I think I got to a point somehow, and this is terrible because it's not really an advice of how to get there, but for whatever reason, I got to a point where I was so decluttered that I could kind of hear that inner knowing that it was the right thing to do. And I think sometimes people get confused because you can say, I want that. But what's making you say, I want that? Is it the clutter? Is it the expectations? Is it the social media? Is it looking at what someone else has and you're like, I want that? Or is it truly what's in here? And then also understanding that you don't need it as well.
Yeah.
So having quit my job, created the business I wanted, chased my dream to a point where I had become a full-time podcaster, doing the thing I love, and then ended up realizing I never needed to do that in the first place to be happy. I could have been working as a sheet metal fabricator and found that happiness and purpose and peace within the connections I had around me. Not going to go back.
That's an interesting one, because I always talk about this concept of survivorship bias, and whether it's the successful people who make their dreams come true that are saying that. Yeah. When it's like, what happens if tomorrow every social media was cancelled and you had to go back to that? How would you be able to integrate the changes in you back into the old life?
It's hard, isn't it? I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know if there is that sort of that bias-driven. I never needed it. You know, the rich person is like, I got all the money in the world. I realize money doesn't make me happy. Yeah, we kind of got that. But if you were poor, would you be saying that? You know, like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But certainly, I did realize that I could have been. Happy is not the right word. I think people choose happiness as that word. I like peace. Peace is my word. Peace is like a wholeness, a stillness. Happiness is included in that peace. But a peacefulness, peace is an understanding that you're going to have happy, you're going to have sad, you're going to have joy, you're going to have anger, you're going to have those. It's what peaks and troughs. So being at peace with those ups and downs, and also like limiting this idea of we've made everything so grand, and success is the big grand achievements, whereas me being at peace, sitting in the backyard with my daughter and my partner and just listening to some music is just as successful, and should be considered just as successful as becoming the biggest podcast in the world, or climbing that mountain, or something so grandiose. It's probably because of social media and everyone seeing what everyone's doing on this device, thinking, oh, well, that comparison is the thief of joy, isn't it? Well, they've done something so much bigger and grand than me. Than my small accomplishment of running 5 kilometres when I've never run 5 kilometres is not worth celebrating. Whereas it is. Anything, any sort of thing that has brought you any sort of joy or peace is worth celebrating. And that is probably the negative thing of social media. It's grand. It's made everything so everyone compares themselves to other people instead of what they're currently in. And so if they're in a tough spot, that one day where they feel great is worth celebrating, you know? And they all think they need to be at the end. So I think that's that is, the comparison is the thief of joy. I think that is the biggest issue we're seeing with a lot of people at the moment.
I had Scott McIntosh on the podcast, and he was talking about holding these like simultaneous truths. So as long as you're striving towards these material things in the world, saying having the biggest podcast, while simultaneously knowing that it's not going to beat a cup of coffee with your partner, as long as you can hold those two at the same time, then you're okay. As long as you have an awareness around that, then you're not kidding. You're not naive to happiness.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. It's understanding that it's there. Doesn't mean you stop. Like I still have aspirations. Of course I want to be a great stand-up comedian. Of course I want to have the biggest podcast in the world. That would be cool. People say, oh, you just want to be another Joe Rogan. Well, look at his life. It looks pretty good. Like, of course. But also understanding that you don't have to. It's a nice balance. It's coming back to connection, and it's the people around you that's probably most important, because at the end of the day, what are you trying to get all this success and this sort of lifestyle for? Generally, I would say for most people, it's to be able to spend time with the people they care about the most. Because how lonely would it be to have all this success by yourself and then you can't share that time with anyone? Even at the moment, like at a point, most of my days are filled being alone at home because I've made this successful life. And I'm like, oh, I'd much rather have a group of friends what's better? Is it having a bit of banter with the lads in the sheet metal factory and loving the people I work with, or sitting at home by myself and getting a day off? I don't know. I mean, I love going to the gym. I love going to the sauna. I love going to the ice bath and having the freedom to be able to go to the beach and stuff. But I'm doing that alone. Like Delby's traveling through comedy. I don't know. It's probably creating the nice, balance, isn't it?
Because we always want what we don't have, right? Like when you're at the sheet metal factory, you want to have the freedom to choose your time. You want to, and then when you're at home grinding on the podcast, then you want to be around people, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I often find myself going to the local coffee shop just to chat to people, and my local barista I get along with really well, and we'll just chat. And I think, it always comes back to the connection to those around us, or those that we care about the most, and those who are closest to us, friends, family, loved ones, all those sorts of things. No one likes going on holiday by themselves. And if they do, they're there to meet people, meet other people. It's always connection. So what does that big achievement do? It gets you closer to more connection, but then you end up realizing that the most of the people who are successful have done it alone, or the other people have to still go to work, still live their life, and then you're not connected to anyone. So it is bittersweet.
What's the price tag of some of your success? Because a lot of the conversations you talk about quite controversial and have brought up a lot of heat with people. I'm sure that's had an impact in your lives. So what is some of the price tag associated?
Yeah. I think there's probably been a few relationships personally that have been affected, or friendships, where because your opinion differs from theirs, they've been very, I don't want to say, well, no, they've been arseholes. I'm very open to anyone having their own observations and their own opinions on things. And it has created a bit of tension sometimes, I guess it's interesting because you end up always coming back to self, and then you'll have this conversation with someone who it'll enrage you that they're trying to impose their opinions onto you and you have to think like them. And then you realize, I am thinking right now that they need to think like me, which is
hypocritical.
Exactly. It's a mirror. So who am I to suggest that they need to think like me? Even though I might not be verbally saying it, I'm still thinking it, which is a contradiction in itself. So the idea that everyone can think and feel differently about different topics of conversation and things that are happening in society, I think is it's a thing that you need to sort of just take a step back and let everyone be. They'll find their own way in some way, whether you agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. As soon as you start imposing your beliefs on other people, that's where the issues arise. And so I probably, maybe early days definitely, you have to think like this. I've discovered this has made me feel better. And now if I don't tell you, I just want you to feel like me, or I want you to have that knowledge and that awareness that I have. And then it ends up being you're imposing and forcing your opinions on someone if they're not ready. Like how often do you get suggested a series on Netflix? Oh, you got to watch this series. And you're like, I don't want to watch it now. Stop telling me. Like if you come across that Netflix series yourself, oh, this looks interesting, and watch it, you'll always watch it. So you got to let people take their own path to whatever. And also you can be an example of that. So if you do find something that works for you, just be that. And then someone might go, when they're ready, they'll say, oh, what have you been doing in this? You look like you're across this. They'll ask for your opinion, or they'll ask for help. If not, who cares? Just let them be.
How do you find that tension in the real world now, where there is like, even if you have that mindset of letting go of people having their own worldviews, there's some progressive ideologies that are being imposed upon society now, such as digital ID. You can go down this rabbit hole. So where is the balance there? Because it is affecting people's livelihoods now too. It's not just a case of letting go of what someone thinks. Like, it's going to have a tangible effect on people's lives.
Yeah. I do feel like the polarity is pretty solid at the moment. There's a pretty big divide within society ideologically, and that potentially is more a minority than we think because we see it. Social media isn't real. I think we see the extreme left and right. You know, we see them on social media because they're amplified by the mainstream media because it sells, it's clicks. But it's such a small minority. The majority of people are right here in the middle that don't really have an opinion on anything and just want to be left alone. And so what I'm actually starting to realize now is that the divide is not as big as people think. I had thought, even at the start of this conversation, I said that the divide is quite, or the polarity is quite strong, but it is only two small little points. So I think if we all realise that we are a lot more aligned than we believe us to be, and we all want the same thing in the end, which is a better, more harmonious society, we all just disagree on the pathway there, then we'll realise that we don't need to point the finger at each other, the left or the right. When you realise that if you've picked a side, you're probably a victim of orchestrated division, and instead of pointing the finger at the people who have orchestrated that division at the top, you're pointing the finger at each other. So it is an issue, though, where social media amplifies that because of algorithms. And so potentially something I'd like to see happen. I don't like this social media ban. I think it's horrific. I think the social media ban, instead of telling people what to do, potentially empower them to make the right choices. Because I don't think we've ever seen a situation where telling and imposing bans and forcing people to do things like we just discussed has ever resulted in people wanting to do what you said. So you take, banning alcohol, prohibition, for example, and it creates this funnel of crime. So I think people want a quick fix. They want it fixed right now, this problem that's taken 10, 20, 15, 40, 50 years to progress into this situation that we have right now. And instead, we have to probably start to implement cultural changes where we educate. I don't like a cliche sort of, we have to educate and empower our youth to make the right decisions, but it is, I think, the way forward is to educate the youth and educate the parents on the best way forward, and probably educate everyone that social media is not real. Just like with the left and the right divide, we're seeing that's not real. It's there, but it's the minorities. If potentially there's a gap in the market there to educate people on the fact that there is no divide.
But what about when we would educate these people? Like, then it would have to be on a consensus view, and that's who can agree on a consensus view?
Exactly. So, and this is why I don't pretend to know what the answer is, but I know that putting a rigid ban on anything and censorship and centralized control over anything is never a good thing. I don't think it's ever been I don't think the people who have censored in the past have ever been the good guys.
Yeah.
It's not often that you censor people's speech because they're saying something harmful. Not often. Throughout history, you probably, even look at the Bible, for example. I find it quite a contradiction that the people who chose the Bible, chose the books that were in the Bible, were the church, and conveniently left out a heap of things that were saying that you don't have to use the church to find God. Like, I think that's a bit of a conflict of interest. And so I don't think ever when someone is the person benefiting from quieting, silencing the opposition view is the one doing the censoring, I don't think that's ever a good thing. It doesn't create dialogue. It doesn't create a voice from both sides to be able to understand each other's reasoning and thoughts. Charlie Kirk's a perfect example of that. Not everyone's cup of tea, but at least entertaining conversations between people who oppose. I think that's probably the most dangerous thing to the people in power or the people in charge is conversations, because then we start to realize we have more in common than we don't. Yeah.
And I guess it does rely, like the system that they have does rely on the majority of people being naive to what's happening. Do you think something I'm interested in, like with the divide, like it's sort of a philosophical construct of like, it's quite illusory, right? Like it's in our, it's like the collective consciousness of society. There's this perception that there's this divide.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where if randomly you go into a coffee shop, right, everyone's sort of getting along, you're having a chat.
Yeah.
If you sat down in a circle and you went through, let's say, 3 of the most controversial takes, I guarantee there would be a lot of bitterness and resentment and energy in that room because of those issues.
Yeah.
But it's like, is that divide? Or is that just, like, do you know what I mean? Like, what makes someone at a core level?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to consider.
Because I think a lot of the great philosophers talk about this ability to hold differing views without accepting them.
Yeah.
And I think that is what we struggle to do. We're so identified with our beliefs or opinions as who we are.
Yes.
Like, why can't we have a belief but that not be us? We're human beings. We should, like, just because we got support different football teams, like, and a lot of, for example, like people hate each other because of that. But it's like, just because you hold different beliefs about who you support or what you believe in, it automatically equates. It's like a false equivalence. It automatically equates to like, we're different, therefore we should not get along now.
Yeah. Well, that's your identity should not.
It is interesting because you'd think your worldview would be sort of an expression of who you are.
Yes.
But it's...
Well, who you are, generally speaking, is a collection of borrowed ideas and thoughts that we've collected from the time we were 2-3 years old, whether it's from our parents or society. It's molded us to have these sorts of beliefs, and it's created the person who we think we are deep down. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about with decluttering those sorts of, that noise within in our mind, where we are not that person. We are not the person that has been molded and shaped by the views of others. There is something deep down, an inner knowing of who we truly are, our authentic self. And so I call it unlearning who we are, or returning to zero. I remember I coined it. I was going to do a big conference on this about how we can sort of return back to zero, start as a blank canvas, so we can begin this journey authentically and truly to who we're meant to be, or who we want to be, or I don't even know if it's want or meant or whatever it is. But when you declutter, you'll start to realize that those limiting self-beliefs, those traumas that shaped who you are, they were all someone else's ideas. Your parents said you have to be respectful or you have to be kind, and some of these values are incredible and they shape a really good person. But they ideologically, they might say you're a Democrat or you're a Republican in America, or if you're a lefty or you're a righty, because that's the way you've grown up, or the media shapes your opinions. Again, it's not you. You're not you're not any of these ideas. At the end of the day, you're right here, centered, trying to understand both sides and having a nice balance. And it's very hard to declutter yourself and not hold attachment to those ideas.
Because you get rewarded now in our world for playing the victim of one side. So
exactly, it's hard. I've had to make those changes with our content. It is difficult because some of these things I think that are like, so for example, if I was to raise an issue with social media, that's appealing to the right, the social media ban. And I know it is, but it's also what I know I feel deep down is right for me. If I was to do the same with something on the left, it's appealing to a side. And so I've made a concerted effort to start to go, right, what's the middle? And that made the content reach go down because people are seeking an echo chamber, a bias, a confirmation bias to say, yes, what I feel is correct, instead of, didn't think of it that way. They don't want to have their ego checked. And so, unfortunately, for people who want to say, hey, let's have a look at both sides of this, their content doesn't go as far because it's not creating hate or polarity, which generally breeds more comments and more reach. So it was a difficult decision to make because I was like, okay, cool, this is working, this is going well. Oh, shit, I think I've fallen for the trap. I picked a side. Shit, now I have to go back. I have to start to not undo what I've done, but to realize that's what I've done. I even did a post where I said I accept accountability for the fact that I've fallen for the trap of division. I've picked a side. And yeah, by going back to the middle and accepting when the left is correct or when the right is correct or when this religion is correct or that religion is correct or whatever it is, doesn't matter what the topic, understanding that the middle isn't sexy, but it's our truth. That's what it is, I think. The middle isn't sexy, but it's more authentic. That's what it is. Because we're not meant to pick a side. We're meant to just go back to connection. We're meant to just chat. We're meant to talk. We're meant to understand each other's point of views and formulate our ideas around that. But then I guess, is that a contradiction? Because then again, once you're talking to people and using that dialogue to formulate our ideas, are we then creating our own ideas or our own identity around other people's beliefs? I don't know. That's a philosophical question that I'm not smart enough to answer.
have you found, like, over the journey, I've definitely fallen into this, like, as soon as I interview a person, there is this sort of cognitive dissonance where you sort of want to mold your own perception, your worldview, because you want the connection with the person. Yeah. You want there to be congruency between what they're preaching because you want to be consistent with what you're posting on social media.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is we're both pretty naive to the nature of our reality. We're asking questions, and that's why I love philosophy, because you're not trying to find answers all the time. You're asking questions, but there is this pressure to be the answer provider on social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm the one who asks the questions. Even in this, you can hear that sometimes I'd have an idea, a concept in my head, but I don't have the answer. I just like to question it. And I think that's probably us as podcasters. That's our role, is to question the people who maybe have thought more specifically about this idea and have a better understanding. Being the answer is not.
It's because everyone's selling something now, right? Like, there's always a financial benefit. So like, we're in a world of money, and people are selling, even when they're online preaching, saying it's because they're either a coach in this thing or they're getting funded by left or right or something to push a message. And it's like, I don't think the only issue I really have with people is I think they don't understand why they believe something. Like, if someone can actually be like, this is why I believe it, and they can actually formulate the reasons for why they believe in it, and we can have an open, open-minded conversation.
Yeah.
But people, if you try and logically go at them and ask questions, they actually have no coherence with their argument because they actually don't, because they don't know why they believe what they believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's always, well, we're probably victims of social media because we all feel like we are informed by our algorithm, whatever we've tailored that algorithm to be, left or right or middle, whatever it is, we're informed. And then we want to parrot and voice those opinions. We're all a little bit lazy and don't do the work to actually understand it ourselves and go, oh, that person's educated. They've actually given a succinct, well put together, nice clip on Instagram from a podcaster. That makes sense. I trust them. They were right about this. They must be right about that. Again, instead of making your own authentic decisions based on what you feel is right for you. And I think that's why it just every single time it comes back to self. You need to. We're so worried about what everyone else thinks of us and what everyone else is doing that is wrong instead of focusing on self. And we actually had on our podcast a guy named Bryn Edwards, and he focuses on systemic organizational psychology. And what they're doing is incredible. And they, broadly speaking, they go into a business or a football team or a family, and they'll break that down into roles and then what each individual brings to that collective and how that makes that collective operate more harmoniously. And that's it's a great thing when you're doing it in a business or a footy team or something like that. But what they've found is they're actually been able to do that in society. And they've gone into communities and been able to actually influence and create a far more harmonious society by getting each individual to understand their purpose, place, and nature within that collective. And instead of worrying about what this person's doing right or wrong and what you're doing right or wrong, it is just what can I do from my point of view and what is my purpose, place, and nature. And what they're doing is incredible. I think is a perfect example of how understanding yourself affects the collective. We've got all these ideas about what everyone else needs to do instead of focusing on what we need to do. For us, that helps everyone else. Now, your role might be huge. You might be the president of the United States. You also might be the mother of a child that is just getting by, but you need to be there to support that child. Or you might be a single father that has to work that job and extra hours and hire a babysitter just to get it done. If that's what your roles are, sometimes it's not fair, but that's what it is. But when we go back and start to quiet the mind and clear ourselves of all that clutter and all that noise shaping who we think we are and understanding who we actually are, we can actually start to work our way towards that real person. And when we all have that purpose, place, and nature, that's when it all operates harmoniously and we feel like we're giving and we're providing and have a purpose no matter what that role is. And I think probably most of us are just seeking purpose, aren't we?
I was about to say that. I think that's why when people impose their worldviews on us, it's so destabilizing for us, because if their worldview is correct, it's going to strip away our purpose and meaning. And at the end of the day, that is the thing we're holding on to.
Yes. Yeah, well, they've created, again, that purpose has been molded and sculpted by outside influences, generally, externally, like the society, culture, news, parents, friends, schooling, all of those sorts of things have shaped and molded our thoughts, and we've held on to those. And if that gets taken away from me, I have nothing. I have no purpose. But again, strip yourself, unlearn everything you've been taught that who you are, and then come back to my purpose, place, and nature. And no matter how big or small that purpose is, when you have that purpose, that drive, that will make you feel like you are contributing to the collective. We will operate more harmoniously. And this is why it comes back to that idea I was talking about before. What's to say that sitting in my backyard listening to some music with my family is not success? It can be. If it's bringing me peace, well, I've won. And so coming back to self is the answer for everyone. Everyone.
It is interesting. I've had a guy, and you might know him. His name's Jake Julius. I had him on the other week. He hosts Rattlesnake TV. He's like a right-wing extremist, but his worldview is like Christianity, and it's like his worldview, for example, when we all have different worldviews, like we could use that as a framework to determine whether something's successful or not. And it's like, is there an objective or subjective framework, or do we construct it? Because if you believe in God, then there is somewhat of an objective standpoint, measuring stick of what determines successful or not, or good behavior. What do you think? What do you feel like you have a concrete worldview, or do you feel like you're continually?
My worldview is ever evolving to a point of which it doesn't matter anymore. What does it matter if I understand it or not? It's like I've gone from a hardcore, strong atheist to a full-on believer in God. Now, whether or not that is a Christian faith or not, or whether that's Muslim or so I don't know where I end up. But at the moment, I believe in something bigger than me. And if you had said that to me 10 years ago, I would have gone, you're a fucking idiot. Like, there's no chance. So my worldview is ever evolving to a point where I have now gone, well, it doesn't matter. We're just here to play the game, like the game of life, the game of existence. I can have an understanding. Cool. I love that. It's nice to have a little bit of a like, oh, that's a curious question. But then I still live here in this three-dimensional world. I still have to pay my bills and taxes. So having a nice little understanding that, one, that's an interesting question, but there's so much more that I'll never know, and being okay with that, and then coming back and going, right, back to work.
That's why
play with my daughter.
That's why the philosophers were the poorest people back in time, because they didn't care at all about the material world.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We're in a three-dimensional reality, and I think we're so extreme. I don't think we're able to entertain all parts of ourselves and be like, yeah, like let's have the philosophy and psychology and let's explore that, but also like let's find a way to make the business work, and how do I have all these different parts of me functioning, because my brain just wants to be identified with one.
Yeah.
How do you find that? How do you find entertaining like all these different parts of yourselves in a world that wants you to like become just one thing?
It's hard because I like juggle. I juggle this idea of giving up and just going sitting on a hill and watching the wind on my uncle's farm in Albany, and wanting to hustle and be this big podcaster. And that's society's expectations, I guess. That's the worldview's expectations. Try and be the best you can be, this self-improvement and whatnot. I don't really know. I don't.
When you say you don't know, you're probably closer than if you said you know.
Yeah, I think I've got, well, exactly. I think I've just gotten to the point where it's kind of just cool and fun to try to learn a few things. And then just, I come back to me and just, it's really hard because you're constantly juggling self-improvement, because self-improvement's cool and good. It makes you feel good and it's quite nice, but then also understanding this, that you don't need to improve. I don't want to not improve. I don't even know.
But improvements like this, we've like created this understanding what we think improvement looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When sometimes, slowing down might be an evolution of ourselves, right? Like we've got this very single-minded understanding of what it looks like in our own head.
Well, self-improvement kind of robs you of what you're experiencing then and there, because if you're constantly trying to improve yourself, you're implying that you're not good enough as you are, which you are, always are.
But what do you think about that though? Because I feel like there's this tension between accepting ourselves who we are. We're good enough right now.
Yeah.
It's just Chris Williamson talks about it, but it's like men especially have this desire to want to be great and they want to have an impact and they want to strive towards something while simultaneously you're good enough as you now. But if you haven't put in the work, I know for me, if I haven't put in the work and someone tells me that, it feels very hollow. I can't absorb fulfillment from that.
It's interesting, isn't it? I have listened to some of that Chris Williamson stuff. He wrestles with very similar concepts that I wrestle with, and it's kind of nice hearing other people go, "Oh, I've been thinking that lately," and then you'll see his clip. I don't know what the answer is. And I've said this a few times before. Like I said, I quit my job, chased my dream, and I achieved everything I've really wanted to then, and now I'm like, well, I want to do more and more and more. You keep shifting the goalposts, but having that realization that you didn't need to do it in the first place to have that peace and joy is quite empowering. But doesn't mean you don't. Like, still try, still have a bit of fun, take a risk. We're playing the game, because that's all it is. I think everyone who's really thought about this at length understands it is a bit of a game. I know it's a very serious game in some aspects and not great for a lot of people, but that's what it is. Life's a bit of a game, and some people try and make a visualization of it, or try and give an example of it like a video game. You're the character and you're trying to build your levels up and stuff. And even that's a bit too simplified. I think trying to understand it is quite feeble. That's been some of my most profound moments on like psychedelics or anything, is realizing how feeble it is to try and actually understand everything. It's quite laughable that we would think that we deserve or should know everything and anything that exists. It's kind of this contradiction of not contradiction. What's the word? Is these two camps? Like, do I try to understand or do I just let go? And I don't know. Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that we struggle to embrace. You need both aspects, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think in this world to survive, like the integration of like the more Eastern surrendering, letting go of the attachment of like, I need it. But then there's also a material game in this world where there's cause and effect, right? Like, if you don't ever post a podcast again, like, you're not like, it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
From a physics point of view, that you're going to put the energy out into the universe to hit these higher goals. But also there's the Eastern side where if you have these limiting beliefs or this so much fear of loss, like if I lose this money, like it might create roadblocks for you as well. So there's like, it is hard to introspect and be like, what is worth taking action on now? What point am I at? And for me, I find this balance of both on the day to day. Like, I'm like, can I create a system where it's like, okay, I'm consistent with my content. I know what I've got to do, bigger guests, good content.
Yeah.
But also like, I don't know, I have this tattoo I put on me, let go. It's like, I know that it's not going to make me happy. The happiness is in the day to day.
Yeah.
It's in the little moments that you can cultivate happiness in the smallest of things. It's not a future point in time.
Yeah. I'll be happy when. That's always the issue. That's the trap you fall into. That's why I've tried to adopt the idea of be, do, have. You would be familiar with that concept. It seems to be far more. It's counterintuitive, definitely counterintuitive to do the be, do, have. But people do fall into the, when I have this, I'll do this and then I'll be this. So if it's happy, when I have the job that I've always wanted, I'll be doing the thing that I love and I'll be happy. Well, it never works out, because you reach that goal and you're like, what next? So be, do, have is you skip that out. You be that person. Be, withhold the values and the traits and the ideas and concepts that person that you potentially would like to be. as the person that you are. So do those things, and then you'll have the life that you wanted to live, because you'll be doing the things that that person was doing. So it is counterintuitive to work backwards. And it does actually, generally, in my experience, you go backwards first to go forwards. But at least you go backwards to go forwards, whereas the people who do the other route,
You go forwards, go back.
they go forwards to go backwards. They constantly find themselves at the roadblock. Oh, I got there. Now what? I have to find something else, and then I'll do it again. It's a loop. Whereas the other one is just like a nice contentment, peacefulness. I feel far better now. Like I adopted that route, and this is probably the most at peace I've ever been. It's just not caring. And even if I deliver messages wrong, if I misspeak in this episode, I don't know, I didn't really do my hair or anything. Like,
it's looking good.
Yeah, thank you. But I like these sorts of things that, and you fall into traps. You definitely do. You fall into old patterns, old limiting self-beliefs. Having a little bit of a reminder sometimes that none of it matters is nice. Also, you got to remember all of these habits and limiting self-beliefs. I'm 38 years old. It's taken me 38 years to create these patterns. I don't just stop them. There's nothing embarrassing or shameful about having to have maybe like a method in place to be able to help break those patterns. Some people are, you've got to be disciplined. You should be able to just go cold turkey. Yeah, maybe. Sometimes you could just go, right, I need a circuit breaker. Maybe if it's I need to stop eating chocolate, instead of having the discipline to not eat it when it's in the house, how about I just remove it from the house for a while? Like maybe that's what I require. Whether it's my emotional reaction to someone abusing me online, if that's something I find is a bad trait and something that's drawing me into a back and forth, instead of going, well, just be better, maybe just keep yourself offline and then remember that and keep enforcing those ideas. Sometimes you need a circuit breaker, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I guess just being okay with what direction you're going in, no matter what. Just understand for me, it's divine. It's all divine timing. You're not going to hear a message when you're not ready to hear it. I've got plenty of times in my past I've found that. And most recently, they're just thrown in my face. Lessons that I feel like, oh my God, look at this moment that I've realized and I need to communicate to everyone on my podcast. Oh, look how enlightened I am that I have had this observation. And one, you'll hear it in a song that's 70 years old and you're like, oh, they were having the same discussions a long time ago. I'm not special for understanding this. Or I'll be, especially lately, I've been clipping up old podcasts for content on YouTube and then realize, this guest told me this 7 months ago and I didn't hear it. Like it was there the whole time. I've had Boris on before where we were talking about, me and Delby had a clip that we talked about quantum entanglement and a potential connection to your future self and not just bridging the gaps of distance but potentially time and whatnot. And I was like, that's a cool little conversation that we've had. And we put it out and realized when I went back to clip up some stuff from Boris's episode, 4 years ago, he said that the exact same thing to us. And we weren't ready to hear it. You're just not ready to hear things sometimes. You're not ready to process it. And that's not great to hear. You think you're ready to hear anything. You're not.
That's true.
The speech that really set me on my path was a Jim Carrey speech. And there was a key moment in that speech that really inspired me. And it was a valedictorian speech that he made. And he was talking about how his dad could have been a great comedian and he chose the safe route and chose to be an accountant. He ended up losing his job and his family ended up still having to do what they had to do to get by. And the lesson he learned most from his father was that you could fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance at doing what you love. Incredible thing. It fucking lit a fire in me. That's what set me on my path. that speech I used to listen to on repeat. It's a 45-minute fucking speech. It's long, but that little moment was what I took from it. And now, every now and then, I'll go back and listen to that speech, and you'll hear something. You're like, how did I not hear that bit of wisdom? And how did I not hear this bit of wisdom? It was always there. I was always listening to that speech. I just wasn't taking that bit out. It's because I wasn't ready to hear it. And unfortunately, I don't think we understand that sometimes we're not ready for that next part. And if we were given the thing that we wanted the most, we might not have been able to hold that and maintain it because we would have fallen into an old limiting self-belief or an old habit or a pattern that destroys that opportunity. It's like a girlfriend or a partner or anything like that, a job. Like if I had have met my incredible partner, Grace, maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I probably wasn't in the best place, I probably would have fucked that relationship up. I had to meet her then. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have worked. If I had got a job or a podcast, if my podcast blew up 2 years ago to 1 million viewers every week, I was a dickhead. I think we're always dickheads, like we're looking back on but I was stuck I had picked a side, now realizing that picking the side's wrong. But so I would have fallen into the trap there. I would have been typecast. I would have been in a niche that I couldn't get out of because I've gained my popularity on that. And that's not what I really wanted in the end, was it? I wanted to be a podcaster that was just open to questions and curious and talking to any side and not really picking a side. So that wasn't the time for it to blow up, even though I wanted to blow up then and there. That wasn't the time. So I think just like we're not ready to hear things, sometimes we're not ready to actually hold those opportunities in our hands. And so perfect example with this podcast. If you were to blow up today and get 1 million viewers and listeners, how cool, fun. But are you ready for that? I don't know. You might not be ready for it. Or you might not have your direction set. It just might not be part of it yet. So it might be the person listening at home right now. They might be like, I wanted to build that business. I want it right now. But have you learned the hard ways to persevere through financial struggles or whatnot? Maybe not. Maybe you're not ready to do that. So I truly believe that when it's meant to happen is when it happens, when you're ready. And I can see that the way that I have become ready is to actually align with the person that I wanted to be. And so I don't know whether or not, which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But again, it's not shameful to have methods or anything like that. I wrote down everything that person was, and that's constantly evolving. I wrote down what that person does and thinks and feels in the mornings. And I wrote down what that person thinks and feels and does during the days and in the nights and in general. And when I align with that list, it's like everything opens up. The opportunities flow in, and whether that's a coincidence or not, or maybe I'm just aligning myself with the direction of the life that person would go in anyway. It's probably a bit of both. But if that person doesn't want to drink, alcohol was one of the ones that I said I really want to cut down on alcohol. I didn't have a drinking problem or anything like that, but I don't want to drink. I want it to be, if I drink, it's a rarity. Yet I was still having 3 or 4 drinks with some mates at a pub every weekend or whatever, or with my partner, and so that person then is probably a little more hazier. He's not going to be able to communicate. He's going to be less cognitive during a conversation in a podcast. And also I preach health quite a lot. So it's kind of counterproductive to drink, put a poison in your body and then preach, you should be eating and drinking water and all those sorts of things. So that's a perfect example of I don't think it's a coincidence that since I've stopped drinking or very heavily limited my drinking, I've had far better conversations. The podcast has improved, and the opportunities or the stresses that have come up and in those times have been easy, because if you get a stress while you're drinking, eating like shit, not feeling your best, you're probably going to find that more stressful. So I think aligning yourself with the person that you want to be, the traits, the lifestyle, is probably the biggest thing you can do in regards to achieving that goal. But then again, always coming back to the fact that you never had to, or what has shaped your having an understanding.
So many paradoxes, isn't there?
What has shaped your understanding of what you want to be as well. So I'm very aware that watching someone like a Joe Rogan has shaped I am a podcast comedian who loves health and fitness. That is Joe Rogan, isn't it, really? So I'm very aware that seeing someone else do that has probably shaped a little bit of my wants and desires. But once I started moving towards that path, I had to go, make sure you're not just doing it because that person's doing it. So I've redirected it, and it's gone in a far different direction than what Joe Rogan will do, for example. Still similarities because it resonated for a reason, but my direction's a little different. It's spiritual. It's the afterlife. It's those sorts of things are very interesting to me. And, I don't know. Yeah. Trying to declutter is difficult though. But yeah, can't remember where I was going with that, but
no, it was well said. I think that was an awesome summary of your journey and like how you've integrated some of these sort of at times paradoxical philosophies. And I think the essence of like being yourself, like, because every time you have this, like, you know what that feeling's like. We all have that feeling of like you want to collapse time and space because you want this thing so desperately. Every single time that is not from a grounded place of your truth. There's a difference between like, I feel in my life when like I have a vision of like, because a guest came on, he spoke about masculinity, sometimes, very forward thinking, right? Because it's like, how do I create the life, right?
Yeah.
But I think you have to be grounded in the person as well to be able to receive that. But I continually ask myself that, who do I have to be to build a podcast? Like, what does that person do? Like, what are they thinking like? And like, I really like how you're talking about, life's going to give you exactly what you need. And I think the problem is, especially I've felt this in my own journey, I'm trying to like master step 12 when I'm at step 3. And you've got to be able to let go of the future and embody and master what's right in front of you, the opportunities you have. Because I think we overlook, we go to the horizon, but we overlook all the beautiful opportunities that are right in front of us, and we don't make the most out of them. And then we wonder why we aren't at step 12, but it's like you haven't even taken step 3.
Yeah. Life comes at you. No, sorry. Life comes from you, not at you. And that's kind of a cool realization. Life is a projection of you. You are creating that. We are co-creators with what's around us. And if we think that life's just something that's happening to us, that's where you feel like you have no power. You feel it's a combination, isn't it? It's that letting go. It's the going with the flow, but still we keep coming back to these sorts of hypocrisies, like it's you are the driver of your life. You put yourself in the direction. You give yourself this direction, yet we should let go. So it's like it's balance, isn't it? That's probably the key, isn't it? Coming back to balance. I think.
Because it is interesting when I reflect on like what you were saying about where you're at and mastering these things you have right in front of you. I think the problem is a lot of us are outsourcing what we need to master because someone who we want to be like is mastering that thing.
Yeah.
Because for me, it might be like, I know a big part of my journey has been like this, like similar to what you were talking about, half in, half out, half committed. And I think maybe life is teaching me that I need to stick at something and believe in it and without the reward straight away. Because a lot of my life has very privileged, given everything I wanted. And it's like, well, maybe I'm getting exactly what I need to evolve. And it's like, what a beautiful but frustrating at the same time thing. Can I embrace all of that at once and realize life is happening and is unfolding in a way that my mind can't comprehend, but maybe I need to let go of this certainty to, that's what we want. We want the certainty of like step 4 is going to be this guest, and that's going to go like this, and it's going to grow.
Yeah. Well, that's the security and logic of the, people, like I said, with the leap of faith, like I think the first time I ever did the leap of faith, I still had a bit of security behind it because I had built a business on the side that I could quit my job. There was enough money that I could see coming in. The real leap of faith is just quitting your job. But then it's got to have a bit of logic as well. So finding a balance is, I think that's what the key theme of life and this podcast is finding balance, isn't it? Behind a bit of logic and reasoning, understanding we live in the third dimensional reality, the 3D world where we are run by money and the busyness of life, but also understanding that who cares? Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for yourself then? Like with all of these philosophical ponderings, how are you setting your sights on building this podcast, but also simultaneously realizing that the fulfillment, there's so many ways to reach that point?
I've fallen in love again with stand-up comedy, and that is it's quite a joy at the moment. Even the bombs, which thankfully are getting less and less, but trying new jokes and it not working, the whole craft of trying to work out a couple of jokes that makes a whole room is fun. I'm loving that as a bit of a creative outlet. But the podcast itself, I think works in symbiosis with that. It's creativity. It's letting the guests come to me and enjoying that sort of process, because now it's there. I can see if a big name's come to town and see if I can reach out and get them on. And that happens. But it's kind of funny when I just sort of stop trying. It's like the right people just reach out like, hey, I'm in town. I'd love to have a conversation about this. And I'm like, cool. So I think I'm just going to let the podcast do its thing. Just going to let that go as it goes. If I'm interested in a topic, because the algorithm feeds me some certain things, I'll be like, right, cool, let's get a guest on about that. But I think the podcast is doing its thing. I've done the work to have it build. It's created. It's a beast of its own. It's sort of just building itself. I just have to consistently do what I'm doing already, so I don't have to overthink that, which gives me more mental space to go and do the thing I really, really, I think I'd enjoy. I know there'd be parts of it that you don't enjoy, but there's always things that you don't enjoy in the whole process. But I always did this to get into filmmaking to begin with. And I seen that the other day, how much joy the filmmaking, the whole bringing something together made me feel. And it was just a clip that I was putting together, a clip that I had put out for Boris, who you've had on the podcast. And I'd already put that out. And on YouTube, if it's longer than 60 seconds, you can't use the inbuilt music that goes behind a clip. So I was like, well, I'll do it myself, and cool. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to put all the sound effects that go with all these transitions and make it really cool. And the flow and the state that I felt whilst trying to be creative with this, what I thought was a beautiful video at the end, I just didn't care if it went well or not. I just wanted to put it out. I was like, oh, look at this. Perfect. This is exactly what it wasn't just the end result and showing it to people. It was the process of getting it and making it all work. And it was just a nice reminder that I love that. And so I want to probably let the podcast do its thing, continue to have fun with the comedy, because that is so much fun and creative, and it's created a bit of a creative spark in my head as well. And then move towards the thing that I wanted to do in the first place. Might get to there and go, no, this wasn't for me. But filmmaking, I always wanted to make films, and it was my childhood dream, was to be a director and an actor in film. So I'm going to start doing that, and it's going to be short films. not silly. I'm going to go write a 2-hour film and think I know what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm going to start making short films, start being creative in that sense, and just have fun. It doesn't have to be successful. That was the realization of that clip. That making that clip was so much fun that I didn't care if it went viral or not. It went okay. I put it on YouTube. We got a few thousand views, nothing much. But I was like, I don't care. That was so much fun. So,
it's a good metric for like anyone to reflect on, because I reflect on that, like a lot of these conversations, and I'm like, you know, in the past there's like that big want of like, how can this interview like make this podcast bigger? And it's very like, you know, it's from a place of like, can a future me? And yeah, part of it is that, but a lot of these conversations I've been having recently, I'm like, okay, if it didn't go out, like I enjoyed it. I was present. I got energy from it.
Yeah.
It's the essence of what I love doing. So.
Yes. Yeah. Enjoyment. It's a game. So if you're not enjoying it, what's the point of the game?
Have you seen throughout the journey though? I've witnessed this, and I've only been doing podcasts nearly 3 years. A lot of podcasts have stopped and started, haven't they?
Yeah.
Since you've started.
Well, they want that instant gratification. Oh, it's not working. It's a lot of work as well.
It is. I don't think most people realize how much work there is behind the scenes of a podcast.
So I do all of that, and I've got it to a point where it's a bit of a flow. I've set it up quite easily for me. I've got templates in place for like an episode. I switch, so I don't have to. You've got the cameras. I guess you have to chop and change. Or do you have
I don't use Autopod. I did before, but I manually do it so I can timestamp them. Yeah,
cool. So that, I mean, for me, 20 minutes later, the episode's out, so I don't have to do too much. That's cool. The one thing
do you do that in the interview?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll just switch because I don't care. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like bang, 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 bang. Like, is what it is. And maybe that was arrogance to begin with, because I'll be like, Rogan's isn't perfect, even though he's the biggest in the world. Or some of these other podcasters, I'll be like, they're not perfect. And then I'll be like, so why does mine have to be perfect? Now, in hindsight, probably to stand out, you probably actually want to put a bit more effort in, because it is an oversaturation. You want quality to stand out amongst the rest. But for whatever reason, that was what I've decided to do. And now, because it is an authentic sort of conversation, if you don't quite get the switch to the person as they're laughing or whatever, doesn't matter. Again, doesn't matter. Just let's go with it. So exactly. I've made that quite an easy process for me now. But early days, it was a lot. But even that, still, I'll do the episode, put that out. I've got the template. The only time that it takes for me to put it up is the 2 hours or an hour for it to upload and whatnot. I've started using ChatGPT to write my descriptions. I don't care. I don't like to outsource AI too much. I like to use my creativity, but something like a description for a podcast,
no one reads it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's more for the algorithm.
Yeah.
Which AI is perfect for. So the thumbnails, for example, people are like, oh, you got to do. There's so many things people don't forget about. So the thumbnails, like I tried to figure out a way to use AI to make it quicker and for me, but it wasn't right. And I don't know. It's just like, again, the creativity. It's kind of nice coming up with a nice thumbnail. And then, finding clips. And then I'm like, okay, here's the episode. I've got 2 hours to go through, and like, what do we speak about? So I'll try and do it straight after the episode while it's fresh in my mind. Oh, that was really interesting what they said. That was really interesting. That was a good conversation, blah, blah, blah. Clip them up and then try and do them. And then you're trying to edit them on CapCut. And so there is a lot to do. Now, at what point do you pull back, let go of control? I've got a bit of a control freak with how it all looks and things. So that's probably my next little...
It's a good part of you, don't worry.
Oh, it's probably my next letting go of the reins and going, all right, we're hiring someone to do that for me, and then going, no, you've not picked the right spot, or that's not going to go well. I think I'm just going to have to go, here you go, because it's going to really free me up to be more creative, to be able to do my filmmaking and stuff like that. But yes, people do not realise how much work goes into a podcast. And then for it to fall on deaf ears and you're doing all that work for it to get no views and no listens is demoralizing. So I can understand why people give up. But I don't know. I just didn't want to. I think I'd unintentionally been trained to do that in other ways through to just persevere. Like when I was playing footy, I played footy for West Perth Footy Club, and I played for 10 years at that footy club and only played 6 league games. And it was in my last couple of years I started playing league footy. And it took 101, and a lot of injuries, mind you, but it took 101 reserves games before I got my first league game. Most people leave after 40 reserves games and go, no, I'm not playing. I was like, no, I'm good enough to play. I'm going to keep trying. Like, if I'm good enough to do it, I'm going to keep going. Didn't realise that was probably moulding a bit of perseverance in me. I've had many moments like that within my life to probably unintentionally, which I didn't like at the time, has really instilled me with perseverance and patience. And
that's what I mean. You forge these character strength. Like I was similar when I was in high school and I did rowing, and it was 7 trainings a week with ATAR. It was like those 12-hour days at school, like 3-4 times a week. Like that builds you into the person who's capable of just doing the thing when it sucks.
Yes, yeah, doing it when you're not winning.
How easy would it be when it starts winning?
Well, yeah, but we had this chat just before we started the podcast that if you were to get the numbers that I just said, which I was like, it's only, and then I think back to me 5 years ago, I would have fucking jumped over the moon to have those numbers. So I'm like, well, yeah, it is an achievement, and but it also is that sort of have an appreciation for the journey. That's such a cliche again. Enjoy the journey, but if you're sacrificing if you're sacrificing your peace or joy that you're chasing at the end to get the peace and joy, then what's the point of doing it? Because at the end of that, you'll end up going, well, like we said, it's a loop. What next? So you're gonna have to do it again and again and again. I'm a perfect example of that. I literally just said it to you before, like we're not there yet. No, I am. I'm at the point that I want to be. I'm a full-time podcaster. Who cares? Doesn't matter if it's $1 million a year or if it's $50,000 a year. I'm a full-time podcaster. That's what I want it to be. So why am I not celebrating that? Because you hold expectations and you shift the goalposts. You're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? So
I find the quickest way for me when I have that thing, right? Like if I look at my numbers or things 2 years ago, there's only a slight improvement, but I would be like, oh yeah, like I was killing to have some growth. And then, but I always find that like, if you can find a way to, I sort of use my cosmic insignificance at times where I'm like, you just imagine, I know Hormozy, I heard him speak a lot about this, but you just imagine having nothing. Like you just, like if you visualize nothing and then you sort of, and you like go back to reality. Cause like our expectations are always hitting this glass ceiling. We break through it. But sometimes it is nice to be like, to actually put yourself back right at the start of that journey when I was in a room, you were in a room, and it's like, you just go back to that point in time. You're like, yeah, it's actually pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Well, I remember our first weeks. I remember our first months of the podcast, and there'd be a whole month and I'd get 27 downloads. 27 downloads for a whole month. And there was some time last year where I got 27,000 downloads, and it's far more now. So it just keeps on going. But I remember getting from 27 to 27,000 and going, well, this podcast is getting 400,000. I'd shifted my expectations. Whereas that's like, what the fuck? 27 to 27,000. There was also, that 27 was only at like 300, like 3.5 years later. So it did nothing for like 3.5 years. And then it eventually started to build. And then even there, we had a pause where it just sort of stuck. It just got stuck. There was nothing for another almost 2.5 years. And I was like, okay, this is the ceiling. And then out of nowhere, just for no reason, it just pops. So I think you just got to wait. It'll happen when it's meant to happen, whatever that ends up being. So mine might end up being, it was never meant to be a podcast. It was meant to lead you to being a filmmaker, potentially. Maybe it was meant to lead you to being a stand-up comedian. I didn't do comedy before the podcast, but because I had Delby on, I loved watching him do comedy. All of my friends became comedians, so I was watching them every week, not doing it, not being involved, and so I got into it, and now I love it. So maybe this whole pathway was for me to finally get into comedy. I don't know. I got to open up for Jeff Dye 2 weeks ago. Like, what? That's ridiculous. So, maybe that's the path. Who knows? Maybe the podcast is just the platform to get me to where I wanted to go. I don't know, but it's all just the journey. It's all part of it. And if the pathway now, like, I'll probably look back in hindsight on like how fun was that, but you definitely don't feel that in the moment. So me looking back in 10 years going, if I don't have the podcast anymore, if I look back in 10 years and go, how fun was that time period, to get to right now where now I am this filmmaker working in Hollywood or whatever, who knows. I'll look back on it with fondness. But for whatever reason, when you're in it, you don't. You're sort of like, I'm not there yet.
The nostalgia when you look back.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Do you think it's possible then to like find a way to cultivate presence and enjoyment when sometimes it is going to entail some suffering?
Yes. Yeah. I think it is. But there's no shame on needing reminders. I think sometimes just to remind yourself, oi, get off your phone, be present, have a connection with the people around you. I use this example of putting my phone down for a while, and I fall back into the trap sometimes. Phones are the worst. They take us away from real connection and real present life. But I use this example a fair bit is I decided to have a little bit of time off the phone, not 100%, but I was like, I'm going to be going to the coffee shop. I'm going to put my phone down, talk to the people at the coffee shop instead of scroll on my phone aimlessly. I go there for connection, yet I just sit there and scroll. What an irony. And I just remember putting my phone down, and a guy that I had seen 100 times, we go to the same coffee shop every morning, nod, move on, nothing. He's sitting down, scroll on his phone. I'm sitting down. Oh, remember, no scroll on your phone. Put your phone down and lock eyes with him a little bit, and then, how's the weather? Bloody finally good that it's turned around. It's just a conversation starter. He's like, yeah. And then we got into this half an hour chat about everything and realized that we aligned so completely with a lot of our thoughts, and we were very curious on certain things. He ended up going, I didn't know you had a podcast. He's going to have a listen to the podcast, likes what we're doing. This connection would never have happened had I just been scrolling through my phone. And that's just one example, but we're doing that all the time. And I needed a reminder. Now, that was me going, oi, put your phone down. You said you were going to connect with people and you were going to be more present. Whether that's the barista or some random person at the coffee shop, you're going to talk and be present. But I needed the reminder, and there's no shame in that. And we're not going to constantly be present. Like that's difficult. Have you tried to be present? Like, what's happening here? I'm aware of this coffee cup and you, and we're talking. But also, you sort of zone out a bit as well. You go into the subconscious sometimes, and a habit that we've formed over 38 years of my life, and probably to protect yourself. What is it? The when you drive in the car, what is it? What's that part of their brain called?
Which one? The reticular activating system.
Reticular activating system, and you sort of red car, look for the red car, see the red car, but also like you just go into your your zone where you don't even know how you've gotten to work. There's probably some sort of biological benefit to having that system in place. That's why we've evolved as humans to be the alpha or the main species on Earth. And there's benefits to those things, but removing yourself from that as well, to be present and just to be aware of what's going on, and is kind of nice as well. So balance again, trying to work in between some of those. But yeah, it is possible. It's just, I think there's no shame in needing reminders.
Love it. Any concluding thoughts?
Concluding thoughts. Just in life.
Anything?
I think go easy on yourself. Like, all of us just need to go easy on ourselves. Because sometimes, like I said before, sometimes we're not ready to experience that part or have that understanding or that awareness or realization, and that's okay. It's okay to not know everything. It's quite feeble for us to believe that we're going to have an understanding of all things in the universe. How laughable is that, So it's okay to not be the best. It's okay that we're not constantly driven. It's okay that we need reminders and prompts. And it's okay to understand that we're probably just playing a game. Go easy on yourself and enjoy it as much as you can.
Love it. Branchy, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, mate.